You're almost at the finish line. Your loan documents are on the way, and closing is just days away. But what happens during this time? Today, I'm going to answer some of the most frequently asked questions that clients have when navigating this final stretch of escrow. Hi, my name is Tyree Schaefer, and these are some of the most frequently asked questions as we get to the end of the escrow process. Let's check them out. My lender said the documents are at escrow. Can I drive over as soon as they call me? Sadly, the answer is no. Yes, you're probably really excited to get into your new home and you want to sign those documents as quickly as possible, but you'll want to call escrow first and make sure that they have all of those documents ready. Plus, they'll give you a call too and let you know that they've received those documents. And a notary will also reach out to you to set up an appointment, but it's important to wait for everything to get checked in and get properly prepared for you before you're able to sign those documents. How much notice will I be given before signing? This will really depend on each individual transaction. This is going to depend on when the documents arrive, how many sets of documents are ahead of yours, and how much time the lender needs to review your HUD. And for those of you that don't know what a HUD is, this is going to be a statement of all the charges and credits for you that are going to be given to you as soon as the transaction closes. Now, while the notice they give you can depend on each transaction, you can generally get an appointment to sign those documents within a couple of days. Where do I go to sign my loan documents? This will be entirely up to you. If you want to go sign these documents at the escrow office, you're more than welcome to. And if there's another location that's more convenient for you, you're welcome to do that also. When the notary calls to set their appointment with you for the signing, you can let them know where you want to sign and you guys can coordinate on your own. Do I need to bring a photo ID with me to the signing? The answer is yes. You definitely will need some form of identification when you go to sign the loan documents. A driver's license, passport, and DMV issued ID card are all acceptable forms of identification. But there are other acceptable forms of identification, so check with your notary if you have any questions before the signing. I received an estimate right after I applied for my loan and got into escrow. That's the amount I'll need to deposit at closing, right? Well, not always. At the beginning of escrow, these estimates are just estimates. While this should be a pretty good estimate of what you'll be spending, specific charges can vary a little bit from that estimate. The final amount that you'll actually need to deposit will be given to you when you go to sign your loan documents. The seller agreed to give us a credit for closing costs. How are we going to get those funds? This is all going to be handled by escrow because that's what they're there for. They're going to divide and release any funds they receive in the amounts that were agreed to in the purchase contract. Any credit that's been agreed to in a purchase contract or request for repairs is going to be reflected in your closing statement and it's going to be credited towards your fees and closing costs. If you're wondering whether any credit is going to be given out as cash or a check, that won't be the case. I have enough money in my checking account for the final deposit. Can I just write a check? No, you won't be able to write a personal check for your final deposit. You'll need what are known as good funds in order to close. That can be either a wire or a cashier's check. Wires are generally seen as the best way to put in your deposit, and that might actually be the only way that your escrow company accepts. And that's because funds from a wire are good as soon as they're received. A cashier's check may or may not be accepted by your escrow company, so you want to check in with them if that's the way you want to go. And these funds take a little longer to be processed, so they'll likely have to stay in your escrow company's bank overnight in order for you to close. I heard that signing the loan documents means that we closed. Is that true? In California, this is not true. In some states, signing the loan documents is considered closing, but in California, the county recording clerk has to stamp and record all of your documents before the transaction can be considered closed. I heard my loan funded. Does that mean we're closed? Again, no, this doesn't mean that we've closed. Funding is the final step to closing though. What this means is that the lender has wired your loan funds to escrow, so title now has permission to send your documents to be recorded. However, funding on its own doesn't mean that the transaction is closed yet. If my loan funded at 10 a.m., why do I have to wait all day to close? As we talked about in the last question, funding doesn't equal closing. There are a few steps that are still going to have to be taken in order for the transaction to be officially closed. Once the loan funds have been received, title sends documents to the county recording clerk to get recorded. And once these documents are sent to the county recording clerk, it's a little bit of a waiting game because they're recording documents for the whole county. But once your documents have been received and they're all stamped, recording is going to be confirmed and your transaction will have officially closed. So now we've closed, but when do I get possession of my home? Possession is something that would have been negotiated when your purchase contract was getting finalized. And this could be as soon as the day of closing, or it could be months later. If you're not sure when you'll be getting possession, check with your real estate agent and they can let you know what you agreed to in the purchase contract. Once I do get possession, how do I get my keys? Technically, possession happens after the close of escrow, so escrow isn't going to be involved in this step at all. Your agent and the seller's agent are going to coordinate to make sure you get the keys at the time that you agreed to. It's important to note, though, that depending on what you negotiated in your purchase contract, you'll either get the keys at closing or when you take possession. Again, if you're not sure what you agree to, check with your real estate agent and they'll let you know. I saw a pad on my closing statement, but I'm not sure what this is for. Am I going to get it back? In California, all figures are estimates until closing actually takes place, so your escrow company might ask you for a pad in order to cover any potential shortage. This will avoid them having to ask for money later on because they don't have enough. But if any of that money does go unused, they'll give you a refund and send it back to you after you close. When do I receive my grant deed? For those of you who don't know, a grant deed is a legal document that's used to transfer real estate between the previous owner, who's the grantor, and the new owner, who's the grantee. In this deed, the homeowner attests to a few facts. First, that they haven't transferred the property to anyone else. And second, that the property wasn't encumbered when they held title. And this second point basically means that there's no restrictions on their ownership. If there are any restrictions to their ownership, those are also going to be listed on the grant deed. It's important to note, though, that the grantor isn't making any guarantees about title defects that happened before they own the home. So, to answer the question, when am I going to get my grant deed? This is going to happen about 3 to 6 weeks after closing, and it's going to come from the county recording clerk's office. And a follow-up question, when will I get my title insurance policy? You're going to get that about 60 days after closing, and it's going to come from the title company. And last but not least, do I get a closing statement when I close? Yes, you will. As I mentioned earlier, you're going to get a closing statement that lists all of the charges and credits that you accrued during the escrow process. It's important to hang on to this statement because you're going to need it for your tax returns during the tax year that you bought this property. If you do happen to lose it though, your real estate agent should have a copy on hand, or they can reach out to the escrow company for you to get another copy. And that's all of our questions for today. If you have any questions that I didn't get to in this video, feel free to comment them down below and I'll be more than happy to answer it for you. Thanks so much for watching, and if you found this video helpful, I'd appreciate you hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more real estate content. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me through Instagram or email. They're both linked down below, and I'll catch you in the next video.